all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
Take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
And keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are you all doing today? Good. Hanging in. What brings you all here? Why show up here? Anyone here for the first time? What brings you here? Whoever, go for it. Yeah. Learning. Feel free to expand on that. Learning what?
About Buddhism.
About Buddhism. Okay. What else?
To learn how to practice meditation better.
Learn how to practice meditation better. Okay. What else? What's wrong with how you practice it now?
I don't know if I'm doing it well.
You're not. So you're great. Do you judge other things in your life?
Me?
Yeah. Just so you know, all of you in like the last half, there's just a huge glare and I can't see you at all. So do you judge other things in your life?
I do, yeah.
You ever think you're not good enough?
Yeah.
You ever think what you're working on isn't going to work?
Yeah,
You ever think you're a failure?
at times.
At times. So here's my lesson for you. And I'll just tell you now, and then you don't even have to stay for the whole hour, you know? Never, ever, ever judge your meditation practice. All right? If anything, just be proud of yourself for just showing up and doing it. Right? So many things in our lives, and when you look at the heart of Buddhist teachings, so many things in our lives revolve around this idea that there's something to gain or be better at or accomplish or achieve or improve. So many things in our lives are built that way. And because we've built our lives that way, we've set up this kind of, ladder that we're trying to achieve or accomplish or climb our whole lives. And very often people come into meditation, Buddhist practice, spiritual journeys, come into them deeply because they feel that all the other areas of their lives aren't what? Perfect? I wasn't even going perfect. I was just going good enough, right? But perfect, that's an even further reach. So then what happens is we struggle with areas of our lives, at least our perception that we're struggling with areas of our lives. And then someone says, or somehow we come across this idea that, hey, I want to try meditation, Buddhist practice. And then what we end up doing is taking the same approach that we use in everything else in our life, and we drop that onto our approach with Buddhism. My first master used to always teach about how to practice Buddhism, which is very specific. And one of the first things he always said was, don't worry about how you're doing it. Just practice it. right? Now, most things in our lives, we don't do and just do them. We do them with some idea of, am I doing it well or not, right? Who's really bad at what I'm talking about? That just everything you do, you're constantly obsessing over whether it's right or wrong or good or bad or good enough, right? So try not to bring that into Buddhist practice. Because really, especially for those who are brand new, all Buddhist practice is, at the very beginning, is a recognition of what you think, what you say, and what you do. That's it. You could spend years just recognizing. So if you're just coming in, yeah, thank you. Oh, take care. Sorry, the huge glare, so I can't see anything. Just recognize what you think, what you say, and what you do. But what do most of us do with what we think and say and do? Criticize. So that kind of self-critical analysis, that self-judgment, that just, I'm not whatever enough. Observe and recognize without judgment and critique. That's it. Like for years, you know? That's the practice. How fun does that sound? All right. So, for me, it's always important that new people understand that that's where this practice really begins, is being honest with yourself about what you think and what you say and what you do, beyond judgment and critique. All right. So, but I'm glad you're all here. Welcome to the new people. Welcome to the not new people. Welcome to our millions of YouTube followers. Always glad to see you. Feel free to say hello. Good morning, Cynthia. Chime in, share your thoughts, say hello to each other. And we'll go ahead and we'll start with a meditation practice. And there's a couple things I'll tell you before we begin, especially for those who are new. Nothing's going to happen to you. All right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. What I mean by that is don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit and we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you do want to be comfortable if you're on a cushion or you're going to benches. Sitting up straight, shoulders are relaxed. The hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, just means your leg hurts or you have an itch. You will not think nothing. For those of you who came here thinking that your mind is going to empty or you're going to go blank, otherwise it's going to just be a mess for the rest of us. Silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. If you're just coming in now, if you can come up here, please grab one of the chairs. Thank you. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, we'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments of the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and steady, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's not from how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And very often that present moment is incredibly difficult. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, and becoming aware of what you think, say, and do. This is what the Buddha called karma. Karma is not what you get, it's not what you deserve, it's not what goes around comes around. Karma is what you give. Karma is what you bring into the world. And the Buddha taught very clearly that we generate karma three ways: body, speech, and mind. So the practice of meditation, as I say every time, is learning to still the body, still the speech, and still the mind. That's the essence of the teaching. It's not always fun and easy to slow down and pay attention to your thoughts and your words and your actions. Because where do we spend so much of our day? Paying attention to what? Thoughts, yes, but thoughts of whom? Others. We can get really good at, what they said, what they did, what they think, who they are. And this practice is like holding up a mirror. And when you look in a mirror, it reflects back on yourself. Your thoughts, your words, your actions. And that's why it's so fun, because you just get to roam around all day and pay attention to what you think and say and do nice to people. It's hard, right? How long have we spent not being nice to people? You want to put a years to the eye roll? A long time, right? And I'm 47, and a good 30 of that was being not so nice to people. And so for me, one of the things I love about, especially with new people, is understanding that we spend so much time trying to fix and change and control and manipulate everyone and everything outside of us. Hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. And the first awakening is to recognize that this is all you. Your world that you live in, your reality, comes from nothing but you. And this idea that meditation or Buddhist practice or any spiritual journey is kind of an escape is coming back to what I initially spoke about, the idea of how to practice Buddhism. It's not the escape. It's looking deeply within yourself and becoming aware and recognizing what we think, say, and do. And as I said earlier, beyond the judgment. Because if we look at what the Buddha taught as to why we suffer, why we experience dukkha, suffering, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, he says the reasons are very clear. It's called the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. That's why we suffer. So the first step is to recognize, where in my life am I greedy? Where in my life am I angry? And where in my life am I ignorant? That sounds like a lot of fun, right? But we start with becoming aware of this so we can then focus on practicing overcoming these three poisons, as they're called. So we overcome greed with generosity. We give our time, we give our attention, we give a hug, we give a smile, we lend an ear just to listen. Right? We overcome anger with compassion, having an open heart, having a forgiving heart, having love towards self and others, letting go of grudges and things that have been destroying us for 20 years. The same thought over and over and over again. Learn to have compassion, loving kindness toward yourself and others. And we overcome ignorance with wisdom. And I know this will shock you, but it's quite possible. Any of you have ideas and thoughts that you're attached to? One. Wonderful. Two. Thank you. It's quite possible, and I hate to break it to you, but it's quite possible that those ideas and views might not be what? Right. It's quite possible that other people's ideas and views might be right also. And ultimately, we begin to recognize that this isn't about ideas being right or wrong, but it's our clinging and attachment to our views being more important than others. So wisdom isn't about being right. Wisdom is about understanding that everyone has their own views. And can we embrace that, accept that, and acknowledge that? So good luck with that one. So I'll pause there. As always, I really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, and we use the rest of our brief time this morning, and I'll respond to that. And again, to the YouTube folks, welcome. If you have thoughts or questions, feel free just to chime in here, and I'll do my best to address them. So thoughts, questions? Yeah.
When you talk about transferring merits, what does that mean?
Sure. So this idea and teaching of transfer of merit. So Let me first start by saying that every Buddhist tradition and lineage is going to do things like transferring merit differently. And the way I do it is just what I learned, very specific to a Taiwanese Chan or Zen practice. And then I just share it in English. And so for me, at the end, and I'll just kind of, you've heard it, but for those who might be new, at the end, when we join palms and we do a transfer of merit, and I say something to the effect of, may any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. So this idea of merit is that we generate really beautiful thoughts, words, and actions when we practice loving, when we practice loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. It's like an accumulation of really good consciousness. Now, I use the words good and bad loosely because, as I just alluded to, it's not about good or bad, but I use the words to help us understand, right? So as we accumulate this positive consciousness, the recognition is that it's not for us. It's not about us. So we send it to others. So if you look even very specifically at the words, may any merit gained from this practice. So if I do lots of good stuff and I gain merit, beautiful, healthy consciousness, that's great, but I want to transfer that to those who need it most. And this really comes from a lot of people within Buddhist practice don't recognize that it is a very old, beautiful religion. Now, most Western people come into Buddhism, right? Not with the religious approach, right? Quick show of hands, how many Buddhists in the room? Look around, there's not one hand up. I've been leading this place for 15 years, and if there's 70, 80 people here and I say, how many Buddhists? You'll see maybe 2 hands if you're lucky. So let me preface this by saying, this isn't about being Buddhist. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or Catholic or Muslim or Jewish or pagan or lack thereof. And most people in the Western world come into Buddhism later in life where they weren't raised Buddhist. And many people say, I like Buddhism because it's not a religion. And then I drop on you that, well, actually it is, right? That kind of rubs some people the wrong way. I'm not suggesting anyone here, but a lot of people have negative views on religion for various reasons, and they approach Buddhism not as a religion. But we cannot overlook the fact that for 2,500 years, Buddhism has been practiced religiously around the world. If you go to Thailand, right? You go to Japan, you go to Taiwan, you go to these places and you tell them that thing you're doing in Buddhism isn't religious. It's kind of like walking into a Catholic church and saying it's not religion. To them, it is. And there's a beautiful faith and belief in religious rituals and practices that have existed for 2,500 years. Now, without getting into the whole long story, we created the Dharma Bum Temple to remove a lot of that and just introduce the philosophy of Buddhist teachings. Because that's what we feel is most important and most relevant for people sitting in San Diego right now. Not the rituals and religious faith, right? For me, growing up in the Taiwanese Buddhist world, I have a very deep faith and religious belief in Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in all time, in all space, in all directions. That's what bleeds in me. And so for me, doing kind of formal ritual stuff in my own little ways, that part's important. Because I believe that we accumulate beautiful merit in this room. And I also believe that everybody in this room is incredibly blessed and fortunate. No matter how often you might think you're not, We might think we have it rough, but if we stop to appreciate what we have, everybody here have the ability to eat today? clean water, food, clothes to wear, probably shelter or access to it, we're doing pretty darn good. Now, how many of you roam around all day thinking about how lucky and fortunate you are? Right? Not so much. So as usual, I kind of expanded on the merit question, but it really comes from a really deep religious, beautiful space for me personally. And I also, just to touch on that since I brought it up, if you look at the definition of religion, they talk about having a belief in a higher power or God or things like that. And that doesn't exist in Buddhism. The Buddha himself was not a god. He was just some dude. He was a prince who left the wealthy life at 29 and roamed the base of the Himalayan mountains for 6 years. And at 35, he sat down and began to figure out why we suffer. And he realized that we suffer because our mind drives us crazy. And then he spent 45 years teaching that. And then he died at 80. And when they asked him, what about gods and goddesses? And you have to remember that he was Hindu. He was raised 500 years before Christ in India, so he was Hindu. And there were endless gods and goddesses. And they would ask him, what about our belief in gods and goddesses? And he said, hey, that's up to you. I'm just some dude. I mean, he probably didn't say dude. I might be paraphrasing a little bit. But he said, I'm just a human. I can't teach you about gods and goddesses. I don't know anything about them. I'm just a guy. And I'm going to teach you how to be kind to everybody. So keep your religious faiths if you have them. They're beautiful. So hopefully that, in a very long way, answered your question. Yeah.
You mentioned kindness to all beings, and I think about this a lot. Like right now, there's like ants and stuff, and they're getting in the house. And how do you balance that? Because I feel like
I know.
if I'm trying to kill the ants, but I also I don't want them in my house.
I know. Those darn ants. If they would just can we just all coexist peacefully outside? But what do you think the ants are saying about you? All right, what's your name? Katie. So the ants are like, Katie, what are you doing on my land? We were here first. They gather and they're like, all right, how do we just get rid of Katie? We're really small. We're going to need a lot of us. Here's the thing. There's a beautiful retreat. And for those who don't know, one of the main 5 precepts in Buddhist teachings, without getting into the talk on that, is to cause no harm. It's one of the first 5 precepts. It's often translated as to not kill, but it really means to cause no harm, which it's a lot easier for some of us to say, well, I'm not going to kill somebody. Or, we look at ants and insects and spiders and things like that. But to cause no harm is totally different, because it's very often much easier for us to cause harm without even really knowing it. But back to the ants, there's a temple up in Irvine. We would go on retreats and we take groups there, and they would have an ant problem. And it's boric, some sort of powder. Boric acid is like a powder, right? Almost looks like it's a powder, yeah. And so you would sleep like it's wood, just like this, just a wood platform, exactly like this. And that's where you would sleep. And you'd have a thin little, blanket thing, whatever. And they would have an ant problem. So they would have in a rectangle the boric acid is called, yeah, boric acid. And when I first saw it years ago, it kind of shocked me because it almost looked like a body, like, you know what I mean? I forget what those are called also, but and what they were doing was, you stay inside, they stay outside, because I guess ants don't like boric acid. They won't cross it, right? So that was their way. I just shared a story, not suggesting that you cover your house in boric acid, right? Let me back up a minute. The fact that you're sitting here and actually concerned about that is beautiful. There may have been a time in your life where you didn't, right? I'm not going to have an answer for you or a solution for you. I can tell you a bunch of stories, and then you can continue to figure out what to do. But understand that when ants, any animal, gets harmed or killed, it hurts. It doesn't feel good to have like a hook go through your mouth. Years ago, one of the college kids, someone was talking about, one of the kids said that for them, meditation was or fishing was a very meditative experience. And then another kid said that's only if you can't hear the silent scream of the fish. Right? I'm not a big like activist as far as pushing people to be vegan or vegetarian. Everyone's got their own choice. But I want us to understand that when we kill ants, it hurts. When we kill fish, it hurts. When we chop chickens' heads off, it hurts. When we slaughter cows, it hurts. When we rip them away from their moms, it hurts. Right? When the Buddha was a child, he was like 11 years old, and he was outside with his buddies, and they were playing. And there were a bunch of birds up in the trees, and they had these like slingshot things, and they were shooting them at the birds. He's a boy, 10-year-old kid, and they were trying to hit the birds. And he hit one bird, and the bird fell down. And it didn't kill the bird, but the bird was, you could see very injured. And it was at that moment, they say, that the Buddha had so much compassion, like it like broke his heart, that he caused that harm. And so that started his consciousness, his theme of thinking, I don't want to harm any sentient being. Right? You could ask them to leave. See if they listen to you. I've been asked questions like that for years. I have no answer for you because you're probably not going to live in a house filled with ants. Right? And you can ask them, but my guess is when you ask them to leave, they're probably going to ignore you. So it's tough. It's really tough. I think that one kind of practice I've heard from people over the years is that we're often, and this isn't about you, this is just in general, we're often contemplating, do I, spray down the ants? Do I hose them off? Do I step on the spider or cockroach, or do I put it in a cup and walk it outside? So very often we look at that. And then as you're putting a cup on the spider and walking it outside and feeling like you just saved the spider's life, you're then going to lunch and ordering a steak. Watch those things. Fascinating to observe what our mind does and how we differentiate between where we choose to cause harm. So just some things to think about. Good luck with the ants. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah, in the back.
Is there a goal to meditation?
No. There's not. Very few questions are actually answered directly, but there's no goal to meditation. This ties into the earlier comment about, I wanting to be better at meditation. When we just did meditation, what did you do? Sat. Were you breathing? Success. You are the best meditators in the world. Now, what we want to caution ourselves and be careful of is trying to make a goal out of it. Meditation, to put it very directly, allow it to be the one thing in your life that you don't assign a goal to. We got enough of that stuff. And all the goals for ourselves and the whole world that we want to just do every single thing we want them to, all of those goals that we're trying to accomplish, destroy us. Because we're so attached to the expectations we have of everybody living how we want them to. And then we judge and critique them, as I talked about earlier. And this practice is about going beyond judgment. So allow meditation simply to be just sitting and breathing. For people brand new or developing a daily habit, I don't suggest that you're like, okay, I did 5 minutes today, now I'm going to bump it to 7. And now you've created this kind of like reward system in the back of your mind. We're like, hey, guess what? I meditated for 8 minutes today. And then we're like, look at me, I'm such a great meditator. Meditation is simply a concentration and focus on the present moment. Ultimately, in the Buddhist teachings, meditation is your entire life. The mistake we often make is thinking that there's our life and then there's meditation. We separate the two. But if meditation is simply concentration and focus on the present moment, we have opportunities to do that as the Buddha taught, sitting, standing, walking, lying down, all of these things, eating, talking, working, all of these things are meditation. They're opportunities to stay present and focused on something. Great opportunities to practice meditation. But if we view meditation as this thing that we're trying to achieve or gain something, Buddhist practice is about stripping away the ego and the pride. Not that any of you have any ego or any pride, right? But since we're working on removing attachment to self and ego and pride, we don't then want to make meditation the thing that all of a sudden is all about ego and pride and self. That make sense? Yeah.
Yes, I'm confused about the definition or definitions of the word dharma. I was told before I came here that it was something else.
Do you remember what you were told?
I was told that it was the belief that when one was born, that they were destined to have a certain occupation.
Yeah, definitely not correct. So the question is around the definition of the word dharma, right? And I'll close on this thought. So, bless you. The Buddhist teachings, the dharma in two ways, right? The first thing, which is when we look at the triple gem at the beginning, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, right? The Buddha is just the awakened Buddha that's within all of us. It's not him himself. He's not going to save us. He can't protect us, right? He lived, he died, he left us the teachings. And so we're taking refuge in what's called bodhicitta, the Buddha nature, the awakened being that is within all of us. We are no different than the Buddha. You are no different than the Buddha. He ate, he slept, he went to the bathroom. So do you, right? Some days may be better than others, right? But that's it. So we find comfort, safety, protection in knowing that we too can figure out how to suffer less. The second one is the Dharma. Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha. So everything he taught for 45 years got written down eventually, without getting into a whole long discourse on this now, but it all got written down. It was memorized for 50 to 100 years. You know, it's not like they were sitting there with iPhones and recording everything. So they memorized it, and then they came together after he passed and said, this is some good stuff. We should probably write it down. So they began to transcribe it on literally palm leaves. In fact, the original, the oldest, first ever block print text was of one of the sutras, the Diamond Sutra. So there's a whole beautiful history of like the written, when it began to, they started writing it down. And all those teachings, which go into what are called sutras, the word sutra is a thread, is what it means. It's a thread of the teachings. All these teachings are called dharma. It's what he taught. There's also another way to look at the word dharma, which is everything that's existing. But that doesn't mean like the way you said you were taught it, is that it is like, you know, what your job or career or whatever is going to be like. It's everything that exists is different from what you just said. So the person who ever told you that may have been kind of leaning in that direction, but it's not a specific thing. Dharma is just all of existence, right? But most commonly it's referred to as the teachings of the Buddha. Yeah, and then the last one, the third one, the Sangha, that's a community. That's what the Buddha taught, that at that time the monks and nuns, and they all practiced together, they were finding safety, comfort, protection in each other, because they held each other accountable and relied on each other and learned from each other and practiced together. So that's in Buddhism called the triple gem. Safety, comfort, protection in the awakened Buddha within all of us, the Dharma, which are the teachings that help us be less miserable, and the Sangha, which is a community that keeps us together. So, yeah. All right, so with that, we'll close. We'll do our transfer of merit. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May any merit gained be transferred to the nearly 6 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic and the family and friends who suffer at this time. And to those in Ukraine and the surrounding areas who suffer at this time, may they all be at peace and free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a few quick announcements before you head out. And Molly, JD, I'm just now seeing your questions and comments, so sorry for not getting to them earlier. I'll kind of hold those for next time, but appreciate you sharing. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up 15 years ago to bring Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So every day we have different practices going on. Temple opens Monday through Friday, 8 to 9. We sit from 8 to 8:25, and then 8:30 to 8:55. And then in the evening, temple closes all day still now, and then in the evening, it opens up again for the 7 o'clock class. We were shut down 18 to 24 months during this pandemic, so it's really beautiful just to be open and almost back to our normal full schedule. Day of Silence Retreat does return in June, so that's on the website. There is an RSVP and a capacity limit for that. We do appreciate you all still doing the RSVPs, wearing the masks and all those things. We're going to continue to stay cautious and try to keep everybody who comes here as safe as possible, so thank you all. Buddha for You also was shut down for 18 months, so that's open downstairs. Maggie's down there if you need anything, some books or whatever is down there. But thanks all for being here. Kira, you're sticking around? Yeah. So this is Kira, one of our fierce Dharma Bum Garden Club leaders. So anybody who wants to stay and stick around and help water and break and pick up some leaves and things outside. As I always say, we have no cleaning crew, we have no grounds crew, we are it. So feel free to gather up with Kira here or outside, and she'll give you some light task, whether it's 10 minutes or an hour, doesn't matter. Every little bit helps. So thank you all for being here. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you soon.
How are you doing?